Title: Pregnant with her third child, Hell Angeles woman lost everything, the cabin she found hid a miracle. Snow hadn't fallen in Los Angeles in years, but that morning, the air was so cold it almost felt like it could. The city known for its endless sun looked pale and tired under a silver sky. Traffic lights blinked through the haze as if even they were weary of trying to guide people who had long since lost their way. On the side of a cracked highway, a battered blue SUV stood motionless, its hood smoking faintly. Beside it, a woman leaned against the driver's door, one hand clutching her swollen belly, the other wiping tears she didn't even realize were falling. Her name was Marina Hayes, 31 years old, 7 months pregnant, and alone. 3 days earlier, she had been evicted from her apartment in East Los Angeles after falling behind on rent. Her husband, Toby, had vanished months ago, taking with him their savings, her trust, and the last trace of stability she had left. With 2 little children, Liam, 6, and Mira, 4, Marina had spent the last week driving from one shelter to another, hoping to find a bed, a meal, a moment to breathe. But every door was full. Every waiting list was long. And now, the car that had been their only home had died somewhere near the mountains outside of town. She stood there in the biting wind, her children asleep in the back seat under a blanket that smelled faintly of soap and gasoline, and she whispered, "God, I don't even know what to ask for anymore." The wind didn't answer, but something about the silence made her lift her head. Beyond the road, past a thicket of trees dusted with frost, she noticed what looked like a faint line of smoke rising into the air. A chimney, a sign of life. She hesitated for a moment, then gathered her courage, pulled her coat tighter around her belly, and started walking. The path through the trees was rough, branches snapping under her boots, the air so cold it burned her lungs. She carried Mira in her arms while Liam stumbled beside her, holding on to the edge of her coat. After what felt like an eternity, they reached a small clearing where an old wooden cabin stood, weathered but sturdy. A soft plume of smoke curled from its chimney, and faint light glowed from inside. Marina approached the door, her breath trembling. She knocked once, then again. For a long moment, there was only silence. Then the door creaked open, revealing an older man with a gray beard and kind, tired eyes. He wore a thick flannel shirt and looked surprised, but not alarmed. "I'm sorry," Marina stammered, "our car broke down. We've been out there all night. I didn't know where else to go." The man looked at the children, then at her belly, then stepped aside without a word. "Come in before you freeze." Inside, the cabin smelled of pine and wood smoke. A fire crackled in a stone hearth, and an old kettle whistled softly on a stove. Marina helped her children to the couch, rubbing their hands to warm them. The man introduced himself as Elias Rowan, a retired carpenter who had lived in the mountains for years after losing his wife. "Don't worry," he said gently, ladling soup into bowls, "you're safe here." That night, Marina cried quietly by the fire while her children slept. Elias didn't ask questions, but there was something in his eyes that told her he understood. In the stillness of that cabin, surrounded by the whispering pines, it felt like the first place in years where she could finally exhale. Days passed. Elias let them stay, helping fix the SUV during the day while Marina helped around the cabin, cleaning, cooking, and teaching the children from old notebooks she found in a drawer. Liam would sit by the fire carving small wooden animals with Elias's tools, while Mira sang softly to her doll, wrapped in one of Elias's flannel shirts. Slowly, the cabin began to feel like more than shelter, it began to feel like home. But Marina knew it couldn't last. One morning, while Elias was out gathering firewood, she found a drawer filled with unopened letters on his workbench. They were addressed to Elias Rowan, County Veterans Office. She opened one and felt her heart twist. It was a notice of property repossession. The cabin was scheduled to be seized by the end of the month. That night, Marina confronted him gently. "Elias, the letters, you're losing this place, aren't you?" He looked at her for a long time before nodding. "Yeah, it's all right, though, I've had my time here. Can't pay the taxes, can't keep up the repairs. It's all slipping away." Marina felt tears sting her eyes. She couldn't bear the thought of losing the only good thing that had happened to her in months. "There has to be something we can do," she said. Elias smiled faintly. "You've done enough, child. Sometimes the world takes more than it gives. The trick is to keep giving anyway." The next morning, Marina sat outside the cabin, watching the sunrise paint the frost-covered hills in pale gold. For the first time in years, she prayed, not for herself, but for Elias. And in that quiet prayer, she felt a strange peace, as if the mountains themselves were listening. But fate wasn't done testing her. That evening, Elias didn't return from chopping wood. When Marina followed the trail into the trees, she found him lying on the ground, his axe beside him, his lips pale and breath shallow. He whispered, "Heart, can't make it back." Panic surged through her. She screamed for help, but there was no one around for miles. She tried to lift him, but the effort made her dizzy, her belly tightening painfully. She knelt beside him, sobbing, as he placed a trembling hand on her shoulder. "The cabin's yours now," he whispered. "There's something under the floorboard by the fireplace. Promise you'll look." Then, as snow began to fall, his eyes closed for the last time. Hours later, under a sky filled with stars, Marina sat by the fire in the cabin, Elias's blanket wrapped around her shoulders. The children slept beside her, unaware. She remembered his final words and, trembling, lifted the loose board he had mentioned. Beneath it was an old metal box. Inside, wrapped in yellowed paper, were stacks of $100 bills, along with a small wooden cross and a note that read, "Greater than, for whoever finds this, may this help you build something better. Don't let what's broken stop you from starting again." Marina pressed the note to her chest, tears falling freely. Elias hadn't just given her shelter, he had left her a miracle. The next weeks passed like a dream. With the money, she fixed the SUV and paid the taxes on the cabin, securing it in her name. She turned it into a safe home for her children, and in honor of Elias, she built a small workshop beside it, teaching Liam how to carve wood just as Elias had. Mira helped plant a tiny garden by the porch, and every evening, the three of them would light a candle for the man who had saved them. When her baby was born, a little girl she named Alara Rowan Hayes, Marina felt something she hadn't in years: hope. The cabin that once sheltered her from the cold had become the heart of a new beginning. Months later, she started helping other struggling mothers who came to the mountain, offering them shelter, food, and a chance to start over. She called the place Rowan Haven. Word spread through local communities about the woman who turned her pain into kindness, and soon, volunteers began showing up with supplies, tools, and donations. One afternoon, as Marina watched the children play in the snow, she looked toward the woods and thought she saw Elias standing among the trees, smiling faintly, before fading into the sunlight. Whether it was imagination or something more, she didn't care. In her heart, she knew he had found peace, and so had she. Years later, a reporter came to the mountain to write about the miracle cabin. Marina stood on the porch, her hair now streaked with silver, holding Alara's hand. When asked what she thought had saved her life that winter, she smiled softly and said, "Kindness. Sometimes the smallest act can change everything. Elias didn't save us with money or miracles, he saved us by believing we were worth saving." And as the camera clicked, the cabin glowed in the afternoon light, surrounded by laughter, warmth, and life, the kind Elias had dreamed of building. Headphone. If this story touched your heart, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more true and inspiring stories. Right finger watch this emotional story come alive. https://youtube.be/x9u63950. C equals VB1_XWBL6x26 Rogi. Heart. Leave a comment below. What do you think the true miracle was, Elias's hidden gift, or Marina's strength to keep believing when everything seemed lost? Approximately 1,720 words, complete single-part cinematic emotional story.